Hi, Melissa. Welcome back. It's
Having me.
been a while since I've had you on. You were a fellow practitioner at the clinic that we shared back in BC before COVID times.
Yeah, exactly. Things BC or
Yeah, or AC
HD. Yeah.
after COVID. Um, and I think the last time we talked a lot about your work as a couples therapist and the Gottman Method, but I think it's, since becoming a psychotherapist myself, who doesn't do a lot of couples therapy, but sees a lot of psychological stressors or concerns that are related to struggles within partnership. I thought it would be cool to have you back on so we could talk about, healthy couples, healthy relationships, communication.
Yes, yes, all important things.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's important because it helps us. It helps our with our own well-being. If we're in a positive, healthy, committed, close relationship where we feel understood and we feel seen,
Mhm.
that's powerful, right? That's good for our own personal well-being, and it actually shows in the research that we live longer too. We have less diseases and we live longer. So it's pretty powerful, right? We're designed to be in community, to be in togetherness. So important for ourselves, for our well-being, for our kids to see that modeling as well. And then it trickles into our workplace,
Mhm.
into society. So yeah, it's important all around.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, if that's not going right in your life, like whether you're single and you're not happy about it or you're in a partnership and it's not doesn't feel healthy or there's stress around that, that's like it permeates your entire life.
Mhm.
It affects everything in your life. So, yeah, I think it's such a huge part of even how we structure our society, but how we structure our lives. Like we often start with the unit of partnership, or romantic relationship, or people that we live with, like the family structure. And so, yeah, and then you're right, getting that right or learning skills that help us in that area can translate into all of our other relationships. And we're humans; we're not just isolated beings. We exist in relationship to one another.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, even in the retreat that I just had this past weekend, that came up, right? I'm talking about communication, I'm talking about conflict management, and then one of the participants said, "Oh, so wait a minute, this can also apply to my relationship with my family members and and also with my coworkers." I said, "Exactly. Exactly. It permeates and the skills that you use to get close and to communicate openly and effectively with your romantic partner absolutely translates
Mm,
to other relationships." So,
totally.
mhm.
Yeah. Can you tell us about your retreat? And we might as well jump right in because you had it just this past weekend.
Yes, yes. Well, and also for those who don't know me necessarily, I'm a registered social worker and I've been in social work for over 20 years now, which is
Wow. Congrats.
yeah,
Awesome.
it feels like a lifetime ago, but it also feels like it was yesterday. So it's funny. When I think about that Laurier graduation back then, but yeah, so since then, I worked in child protection and then I started my private practice working with couples specifically in 2012. And then after, so there's an overlap between, there was about 5 years overlap between doing child protection and then also having my practice. So there's many long hours, long days. And then I had my son, and so after having him, I didn't return to the government job after my mat leave.
Mm.
Just focused on the private practice and really delved into that more. And now I've expanded, so now I have two associates and an intern on my team, and I'm really grateful, very, very grateful because I'm very choosy in who I bring in on my team. They must have a passion for couples because it's not for the faint of heart. Working with couples is complex, and delicate and needs that neutrality and but also that tact with being uh, gently confronting when needed.
Mm.
So you want to maintain that balance between both people to maintain that alliance with each of them, but then also being able to be honest as well, and use our uh, self of the therapist where needed to be able to um, gently confront and be able to address maybe mistaken beliefs or some portion of their context that might be fueling their perspective, but it might not be what their partner intended, or especially like in Gottman's terms, if the couple is in negative sentiment override, then they might construe something that might have been quite neutral as a negative, right? Whereas if the couple is in positive sentiment override, then they'd be more apt to give the benefit of the doubt and be able to extend grace to their partner. Um, so so yeah, being able to do that is it takes some finesse. So when I grew my team, that was one thing that I really wanted is, are you passionate about couples? And are you interested in Gottman Method, or do you have Gottman training already? And so, yeah, those on my team have those check marks. So I'm really proud of my team. They're wonderful. Um, and then, like, just in terms of kind of background, so when my son was about 2, I went back to school and I did a second master's. I had actually I had always thought about going back and doing a PhD in psychology, or 'cause my undergrad is in psychology. So I had thought about PhD in psychology or a PsyD or something like that. So I was looking into that, but then God led me to this program that was the Master of Theological Studies, and so it took 5 years part time to do that, and I finished that last year.
Oh,
So
wow, I didn't know that.
yeah,
Okay, yeah.
yeah, so
Huh.
I'm grateful for that's under my belt and done because it was tough, being a single mom and working and going to school part-time, so it was a juggle, a balance, but I loved it. I really got a lot out of the program. The staff I did at Tyndale University, the
Mm.
staff there are just fantastic, phenomenal, like, the professors are so helpful and caring, and they really it's very clear that they want you to succeed.
Mm.
Uh, so there's that care there. And even, the building is a little bit difficult to navigate, because there's, like, a wing here and a wing there, and some stairwells don't go to certain floors, and it's like, "Oh, where am I
Mm.
going?" And so, even if you look lost walking down the hallway, like, a professor will kinda guide you to, where you need to go, which is really nice. Yeah, so that's kind of just a little bit about me just for
Yeah.
listeners who aren't familiar. Um, and and yeah, so I started retreats last year. And so I had the first annual couples retreat last year at Queen of Apostles Renewal Center in Mississauga. So it's kind of nice because it's within the GTA, right? So you don't have to get on a plane and or travel for several hours. Like a lot of the participants, they were there within half an hour of leaving their home. So it's kind of convenient that way. But then it also feels like you are retreating. You are getting away from the city because it's a very quiet. It's a residential kind of area, and the renewal center itself has a lot of grassy area and trees, and it's near a ravine. So it's just very one with nature. And there's, seating areas outside and inside too. There's some like nice little spots for reflection. And so it's a nice little getaway for the weekend. And the rooms are very simple, which I quite like because and I've got that feedback from my participants as well, that they appreciated that as soon as they entered, they felt like it was already like a calming vibe.
Mm.
That's what had said to me this past weekend was that they felt like they already felt calm just entering the building, right? So it's nice. The rooms are simple. There's no TVs, which is good because guess what? These days, digital distractions is one of the barriers to communication,
Mm.
right? We
And
always have a
connection.
screen in front of
Mhm.
us, and then we're not turning towards a partner. So yeah, the rooms don't have any TVs. If you wanted to do a digital detox for the weekend, you could, right? Like putting the phones away or like not bringing an iPad or whatever, you could. It's an option.
Mm.
And yeah, the staff there are fantastic. The food was great. Like, it's a lot of, very comforting foods. There's, pie, pie, like scrambled eggs and bacon and sausage and, like, heavier foods than probably I'm used to, but it was nice kinda, like, comfort foods. And, I remember there was one meal that had, like, sweet potato fries that were so good, like, they made them from scratch, and so the outside was crispy, but then the inside was nice and soft, and they were massive fries. Oh my gosh, this is so good. So yeah, so there's always some kind of protein for every meal and salad options and oatmeal and yeah, so food was good. The group was good. There was a good kind of group energy, group vibe. So that's always important for these kind of things, right? Because
Yeah.
how people who attend will gel. But when I did it last year, I was super grateful. It was such a lovely group and a whole range, right? There were some pre-marrieds and there were some who were married like kind of middle aged that were married maybe 7 years, 8 years. And then there were some that were married longer, like over 30 years. So that was last year, quite the range. And then this year, they were all married like 2, 3 years, and but like a range in age, which was kind of cool. So yeah, it's neat to kind of see, who is there at any given group and like how everyone kind of gets along and it's nice to break bread together
Mm.
too, right, for the meals and we're just like chatting and laughing and sharing stories and yeah, it's nice. It's nice.
That's cool.
Yeah. And the actual teaching itself, it goes from Friday 4 o'clock to Sunday 3 o'clock, and there's teaching throughout the days that we're there together. So the basis of it is Gottman's 7 principles for making marriage work.
Mhm.
So the book, I have it right here.
Mm. I gave that to my brother and
Did
sister-in-law
you?
when they got married, yeah. I
Oh,
had
that's
it and I was like, "Here's my copy."
I love that. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I had a financial advisor come this year. So last year Um, it was me, like, mainly being the speaker, but then I also had my personal Gottman trainer and supervisor, Mike Fiddler. He came and he, was there basically as a support, which was really nice, and then he just kinda shared some stories here and there. And then this year, I was the main, lecturer or facilitator throughout the weekend, but I did bring in a guest speaker Saturday afternoon. So, because I know that for a lot of couples, money is a big issue these days, and so, well, kind of always, but yeah, especially these days. And so I brought a financial advisor in to kind of
Ugh.
give some advice and tips on money. So, anyways, I gave him one of these as well. So he
Yeah,
got
I love that, like, we did kind of, it wasn't a retreat, but it was sort of a program together, I think maybe your first year or it was early on in our time at Blue Wellness, and I love the holistic nature, like, you bring in financial advisors, you bring in, like, all the different elements that surround relationships, right? It's not just about the couple, but the context the couple's in. If there's financial stress, that can impact the relationship. So it's cool that you have that.
Yeah, I remember that. So you were one of the speakers
Mm.
for I think it was physical wellness or no, it was emotional wellness, right?
Oh,
That
yeah,
you
emotional wellness,
Yeah,
yeah.
emotional wellness. Yeah, because being a naturopathic doctor and then being able to address like anxiety, depression from that lens, like that was really helpful. Yeah, that was based on my relational wellness wheel.
Yeah.
the social and financial and physical and emotional, vocational, environmental, spiritual. Yeah, there's 8 different areas. So, uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I remember that it was like a workshop series, and then I had one kind of specialist from each area come and talk about it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that was fun. I like that doing that
Yeah.
series.
That was good and very holistic. Like, that was impressive to me is it's not just like taking a couple and sitting them down and I mean, there's that in couples therapy, but then there's also the bigger environment in which they find themselves and how do you keep yourself and your partnership healthy by addressing and looking at all these different things. So that's cool. That
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, from that systemic lens, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you had so what was the teaching like in the retreat? Like you followed the 7 principles of, making marriage work? Is it
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
with by Gottman, the Gottmans,
Yes. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is the lean or I guess the lens through which you do most of your couples work, the Gottman Method.
Yeah. Predominantly, I lean on Gottman. The nice thing about Gottman is that it allows for integration quite readily. So I also draw EFT, so emotionally focused therapy, or internal family systems, or some cognitive, not much, but like maybe some mindfulness, narrative. So yeah, it just kind of depends what's in front of me and what tool I need to pull out of my toolbox. But yeah, predominantly I do lean on Gottman. And I got certified, so there's quite a lot of hoops to jump through to be able to get certified, and so I achieved that last November.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, so exciting.
Nice.
Um,
A lot of things happened last year. It's like the first
right?
retreat,
Yeah, it was
your
like a
master's, yeah, the
yeah, it was
Gottman training.
exactly. Last year was kind of the end result of a lot of work, like a lot of years of work. Yeah.
Mm,
Um, and that kind of continued on into this year because this year I finally got approved as a AMFT supervisor.
mm.
And that was many years in the works. So, yeah, I don't even know how many, probably
So it's marriage family therapist,
8
right?
years.
Yeah,
Maybe.
mhm.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, so AMFT, yeah, American Association for Marriage and Family Therapy.
Mhm,
S They and that was a lot of hoops too, right? You have to do your hours, your client hours, your supervision hours, your mentoring hours. You
mhm,
have to do a course. So, yeah, it's quite a lot
mhm.
involved with that as well. So, yeah, a lot of accomplishments, and so I'm grateful. I'm really grateful, and I'll be moving to Sarnia, so my associates will be kind of staying in GTA area, for that in person. I mean, we all do virtual, so
Mhm.
so we can see anyone in Ontario, all across Ontario. And actually, one of my associates is insured for other countries as well, so
Oh,
that's kind of nice. So she's kind of opened it up a little bit more. But yeah, for most of us, we're insured within Ontario. Unless we have some arrangement with like a particular province, which I did have with Newfoundland, but it's expired now. But anyways,
mm,
predominantly Ontario, and then in person, limited in person, like really just Fridays in Mississauga, and then I'm going to be moving to Sarnia in July, so I'll be offering in person there. But yeah, most of my sessions honestly are virtual, like especially since pandemic, I find that people just they've kind of gotten used to
mm,
doing it virtually, and so it's convenient. They don't have to worry about, you know, commuting and parking and all that rigmarole, and so,
mm,
yeah, they just find it really more convenient.
mhm. Yeah,
Mhm.
I find that too. I mean, I'm still virtual and I'm considering going in person, but I think, I might just to have some of that in-person connection because we've been missing out on that for so long, but I think probably it'll always stay at least 50% virtual. It's
Yeah.
because of the convenience and it works. I mean, there's research to support that it's just as effective.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, let's talk about Gottman and some of the teachings because one of the things that always stood out to me with Gottman that I think a lot of people resonate with is this like concept of turning towards,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
and yeah, and then this is sort of the context that you create in this retreat where you're taking away stimulation, like the rooms are simple, the landscape is simple. It's also not that dramatic because, like you said, they're just traveling maybe 30 minutes. So it's not like you're booking a trip and you're going to Costa Rica and you have this like customs and like you're just driving to
Yeah.
Mississauga and
Also lovely. Like, yeah,
yeah, right.
I'm
But
looking
it's
into
like
doing international retreats too, but
yeah.
yeah, it's nice to have the option. Yeah.
It's
If they
also
don't.
less expensive probably because you're not booking a whole trip. And then you're removing like technology and all this stimulation distraction and you're just sitting, having meals and lessons and things with your partner and then also other couples.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so there's not I mean, it's psychoeducational, right?
Mhm.
So there's not any expectation to share about your personal stuff openly with everyone at all. So there are some group exercises, but that's more like, okay, here's a scenario that I'm gonna give to you, and what do you think would be an appropriate way for there to be a softened startup, for example, right? Like there might be a scenario given, and then okay, this is an example of a harsh startup, but what do you think could be ways to soften that and have a softened startup? So we kind of do that as a group exercise, and then they do um, private couple exercises. So I give them the the uh, the instructions, the exercise to do, and then they go and do it. Like for example, the first night we did love maps, right? So that's one of um, the the friendship foundational principles of strong marriage is the friendship is the bottom three. So the love maps, so that how well you know each other is what that means, and then turning towards
Mm.
and and then oh now I'm blanking. What's the other one? I'm gonna have it right here. Love maps. Oh yeah, fondness and admiration. Fondness and admiration turning towards. So those three are the bottom three of the sound relationship house
Yeah.
that form that strong foundation. So yeah, for example, they would go off into their couple spots, and then share with each other the love maps exercise and ask each other questions like, oh, so what's your favorite tree, or they can make it into a game and kind of guess of, okay, the question is like, what's your partner's favorite tree, and then you guess what it is, and then if they get it wrong, then amazing, that's a great opportunity for growth and learning, that you open your repertoire of knowledge on your partner, so then they can gently correct and share with you what their favorite tree actually is, if
Mhm.
you don't know it already. Um,
Yeah. It's
like,
nice because, so much I think that brings people to couples therapy is like a conflict, or maybe they're at an impasse, or they are maybe both like at the end of the relationship and this is like the last ditch effort to salvage it. Sorry if
yeah,
there's a lot of construct it's really loud right now, the constructions. Okay. Um, but it's nice to like be considering and I'll put a link, like people can look up the sound relationship house because it's a really beautiful image that like kind of what is your relationship built of? What are the walls, the foundation? Um, but it's also nice to use yeah, okay, that's perfect. That's great. Yeah, trust and commitment. I talk about this actually a lot with my
yeah,
individual clients, because
yeah,
they're like
totally.
trying to sort out why a relationship doesn't work, and then we find, okay, well, you don't have walls on your house.
Exactly.
Um, but I love that it's like, what's your favorite tree? It's not very charged. Like I don't even know what my own tree is, but it gives the opportunity to work with that material. It's like a starting material that's kind of more benign. It's like, "Oh, why don't I know my partner's favorite tree? It's probably because I've never asked, and why wouldn't I have asked?" And so it allows you to kind of, yeah, contemplate and think about it without it being like like, "How come you didn't know how to, celebrate my birthday properly?" Like, it's not emotionally charged necessarily.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's foundational, and with my couples, I often give that as homework item as well, so they can work on that in between sessions, and like you said, it's not emotionally charged, it's something that's usually fun, it's meant to be fun,
Mhm.
um, and a nice way to just refresh even the love maps, and John Gottman even says, maybe they're there have been times where your partner might have shared about it, but then you might forget. Like, you don't remember all these details about your partner. So then he says, "Okay, if you don't remember, here, write it down on a piece of paper, like, now you'll remember," right? So it's not only having the conversation and sharing it, but also remembering it, like, retaining that information. And even at the retreat this past weekend, I had told, or I had suggested to the couples, like, to put even, like, create a note in your phone, or jot it down on a paper, like, that is an accumulation of things about your partner. So even come, birthday or anniversary or whatever, that you're looking for a gift idea, can always access that list that might have their favorite color, their favorite, restaurant, their favorite, um I don't know, their favorite author, their clothing sizes too, right? Clothing sizes and,
That's a good one,
uh,
actually.
yeah, shoe sizes, ring sizes, like, all those things, like, preference on, like, they prefer silver jewelry over gold jewelry, for example. So being able to kind of have a little note,
Mm,
that is continually growing and evolving and changing, because their favorite restaurant now might be very different from what their favorite restaurant was 5 years ago.
mm,
So, so being able to update it along the way as well.
mm.
I know John and Julie Gottman do that every year. They update their love maps, and there's an app for that. Isn't there an app for everything?
Yeah,
There's an app for that, called the Gottman, card decks app. And so it has a lot of different kinds of card decks on there, and one of them is love maps. So you can even, while you're on the go, maybe you're doing a road trip, or, waiting in line for something, or you're at the grocery store, you can just kind of pull out that app and then share with each other some questions. There's, like, a really interesting one on there called open-ended questions as well, and it's kind of asking those questions that don't necessarily come up in conversation naturally, like, "What do you think about our house? Is there anything that you'd wanna change with that? Like, what's your five-year plan? What do you wanna do when we retire?" Like, there's lots of really rich questions that you can kind of get the ball rolling with that. Um, and then you had mentioned about turning towards as well. So in terms of that, the concept that Gottman talks about is bids for connection, right? So bids for connection can be verbal or nonverbal. So it can be just a very explicit, "Hey, I've had a rough day. Can I have a hug?" you know, that's a very explicit bid for connection. Or it can be very subtle, like just coming in after a hard day and just kind of plopping on the couch and giving a sigh,
mm,
right? You're not necessarily verbalizing, "I need you right now," but non-verbally you are. And so the partner can respond to those bids for connection in one of three ways. So the first way is to turn towards it. So they kind of drop what they're doing. If they're in the middle of doing dishes, the dishes can wait. Like, turning towards your partner and leaving the dishes in that moment to just inquire, like, "Are you okay? What's wrong? Tell me what's going on." And so that's turning towards, getting curious, from a place of care and warmth. And then there's turning away. So if you're in the middle of doing dishes, you just, like, you might hear the sigh or see that they're upset, but then you just keep doing the dishes. Like, you're just kind of on that task and you just continue on. Um, and and then turning against. So that's where there might be some horsemen coming in the picture, whether it's criticism or contempt, and just kind of being harsh, like being, yeah, critical or hostile towards your partner, of like, "Ugh, why you gotta be so miserable all the time? Why are you sighing all the time?" Or something like that, right? Like some kind of harsh statement, then that's turning against. So Gottman calls these kind of sliding door moments. So these little tiny moments in time where you can do one of those three responses, and that will dictate the long-term happiness in the relationship, if you're you're responding and you're contributing and you're building that relational bank account.
Mm.
right? So if you're turning towards, then that you've made a deposit in that relationship bank account. So then over time that builds up. And then eventually, if there is some kind of big stressor that happens, let's say job loss or an unexpected pregnancy, or a parent dying or something that's a life stressor that, it happens, then you have a robust bank account to be able to survive and weather that storm, right? So that's the idea. Whereas if it's already in deficit, if it's already in the red, and then that storm hits, then you're kind of sitting like going back to the house analogy, you're kind of sitting in a straw house, right? It's not strong enough to be able to weather that storm. So yeah, so that's how turning towards kind of works as well.
Yeah, because I can imagine, like, all those little moments of either having a partner, turn away or turn against creates, like, resentment, this lack of trust, this lack of feeling like you're in a partnership with them. You don't feel like you matter, and frustration because, like, a lot of from the individual side of things, like, a lot of, my clients will express this frustration with their partner. It's like, "How do I get him or her or them to do this or to respond this way or to," and, there isn't this trust that they'll receive what
Yeah.
they need from their
Yeah.
mm,
100%. And so thanks for raising that because the needs are so, so important. And I tell my couples, like, you need to ask for 100% of what you need.
mm,
And you might not get 100%, but it's important to be able to put it out there. This is what I need. This is what's really important to me. This is why it's really important to me. And can we negotiate here? Is there some middle ground? Is there, like, I get you might not be able to do it 100% of the time, but where can we find some understanding, like mutual understanding here? So yeah, that's the expressing needs exercise is one that it's one of the first interventions that I usually do with my couples is just being able to have them share with each other their top three needs
huh,
and be able to do that from a place of healthy communication. So I walk them through communication tools to be able to do that. Like I developed one called ILEAD. So would it be helpful to kind of walk
sure,
through?
yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
So it's called ILEAD. So ILEAAD. And then in between the two A's is a little heart. So the heart indicates um, a transition between the speaker listener kind of rule that happens first, and then the open dialogue kind of role that happens after. So I'll kind of walk through. I know some people might be seeing visually as well. So would it be helpful for me to just even share the screen?
Sure, yeah, that'd be great, actually. Can you?
See, send request.
Oh, yeah. Allow, there we go.
Okay,
That was
perfect.
easier than I thought. This is the whole
Other
navigation thing.
thing,
Oh, that's beautiful. That's great, actually.
technology.
It's good. Yeah, because you can watch this on YouTube or Spotify for everyone who's just listening, and there's some
That
visuals, but we'll also link to your site and
Yeah, yeah, which is great. Yeah, this is on the site. So, it's on, like, if you subscribe to the newsletter, then this is like the freebie, right?
oh,
That
cool.
that people get. So if you want a copy, then you can request it that way. And then, yeah, at the beginning, I just kind of go over, why is this important? Why is communication important? We want to be able to model that for our kids
Mm.
because they're watching always. And yeah, this just talks about the speaker listener dynamic. So when it's their turn, I always hold my little pen with the flower. This was when I used to officiate weddings. I still have it. And so you have like the baton or the microphone when you're the speaker, and you don't let go of that until you feel heard and understood. Then you can pass the baton to the next person, and then they switch roles. So there's a pretty specific format to be able to feel understood. So firstly, starting off the conversation with that, like Gottman says, soft and startup. So the I feel statement. So you're leading with the feeling word. I feel X when Y. I need Z. I incorporated a little bit of internal family systems here of saying part of me, because sometimes there is an internal conflict about some of the needs. So in this example, maybe it's, part of me feels lonely when you're on the phone during dinner, and I need you to engage in conversation with me. If that happened, I would feel loved and cared for. So you're expressing how you feel. So in this case, lonely, with that need not being met. And then you're saying why, like what happens that makes you feel that way. And then you're saying what you actually do need. So Gottman always says, like, phrase it as a positive need, because I have couples talk about what they don't want at length, right? They can be very descriptive about what they don't want. But then when I try to get them to explain what they do want, it's a little harder, right? It's hard for them to even conceptualize, like, what would that look like? So really thinking about what you actually do want, what you want to see happen. So in this case, it's I need you to engage in conversation with me, and then sharing about how you'd feel if that need were met, right? They'd feel loved and cared for. So that's how the communication starts out. You're always leading with that feeling word, and you're saying what you need instead, and making that request. And then the other person, the listener, can start with asking open-ended questions. So this is the L for listen. So the I was I statements, L for listen. Um, so you're going to be coming with like wear the hat of empathy, right? You're going to be coming in with really tapping into that empathetic part of yourself that wants to meet that need, right? That is open-minded and receptive. And so you're going to come with any kind of curious, deepening questions or clarifying questions. That's how you're going to kind of start it off, just so you can have a really good understanding of where they're coming from, and then summarize what they said. So that's all part of the L for listen.
So it's not like, "What are you talking about? I never go on my phone," or, "I only did it for fun," not
Exactly.
arguing. You're more like,
Exactly.
"Okay, so last night, how long did you think I was on, like, how long was I on my phone?" Or, you're getting more clarity as opposed to defending or you talked about the horsemen, defense, criticism,
Exactly.
contempt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And with this whole communication exercise, exactly, that's the point. Avoid the 4 horsemen at all costs.
Mhm.
This is so damaging, right? That
Mhm.
predicts divorce and separation later down the line. So avoid the 4 horsemen. So that's the criticism, contempt, um, defensiveness, and stonewalling, right? So you're gonna come with that readiness, emotional readiness to be able to have this kind of conversation. That's the first thing to do is both people to be ready for the conversation and agree on when you can have it. Because if one person is wanting to jump into this kind of conversation, but then the other person is hungry or tired or on their way out the door, or they have a deadline that they have to meet for work and they have to get that done, you're gonna set that whole situation up for failure.
Mm.
So set it up for success, choose a right time that makes sense for both of you, and then go in with that open mind. So yeah, the open-ended questions, and then summarizing. And then E is for empathize. So we have the I for listen, the L for or sorry, I statements, L for listen, and then E for empathize. So being able to mirror back what you heard. And this is really hard sometimes for people because they might not agree, right? They might not agree with what their partner is saying. So then they're like, well, how can I empathize and validate their experience if I don't agree with what they're saying? Okay, fair. But you don't have to agree with them, right? You don't have to agree with everything that they're saying. You can put that aside that you don't agree with XYZ and tap into what part makes sense for you that they might have shared. Like, is there even just a part of what they said that makes sense to you? that you can understand where they're coming from, that you see, okay, from their point of view, this is what they experienced. And remember, everyone has different contexts, right? So from their experience, maybe they're coming from a place of trauma, or maybe they're coming from a place where they experienced abuse, whether it's in the childhood or a previous relationship, or maybe even earlier in this relationship, like something happened that then triggers this emotional response. So being able to understand that you might not share their perspective, and that's okay. Everyone's different, that's all right. But at least to try to see it from their perspective, from their experience, this is how they're feeling and what they're looking for. So being able to say something like, "Okay, yeah, I get it. That must have felt XYZ," right? And then using those feeling words that they might have said before, like lonely, like, "Okay, yeah, I can understand how if I'm on my phone throughout our whole dinner, days on end, how you can be there kind of stewing and feeling disconnected and lonely. Yeah, I get it." Right? So being able to empathize in that way. And then the first A, it's for apologize. So that might not be always um applicable. It depends on the situation, but if it is applicable, if there is an apology, even like I said, for a small portion of what might have happened, then go for it, right? Extend that apology and be able to, eat a piece of humble pie and be able to take that. Apologizing is also something that Gottman found that the masters do really well. So, the masters of relationships were those who lasted the distance and they were happy in their relationship. So, they were really good at repairs, right? Repairs includes apologizing, or it can also include just saying, okay, yeah, you know what, you have a good point. Or, or calling a timeout of, okay, things are getting a little heated right now. Let's just take a break and then come back. Or it can be like a touch on the shoulder, just like a hug when you're kind of things are getting a little bit too much. And so that just brings in that sense of connection again. So repairs are really good, and that includes apologizing.
Yeah, you're not enemies, like, you're reminding yourself and the other that you're still connected, you still love them, even there if
Ex-
there's a disagreement or there's been a rupture, and I think the research, like, this is true for parenting too, it's like, it's not about not having conflict, it's
Yes,
about repairing after rupture, and that actually strengthens relationship more than no conflict at all.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, and it's parallel with kids for sure.
Mhm,
And if there's no conflict at all, then I wonder, like, is there communication happening? Like, is
mm,
just avoidance happening and neither person wants to really raise anything? And then that by itself feels isolating,
mhm,
right? So yeah, it's important to be able to share what's on your mind because that brings more closeness and then
mm.
be able to have that repair. So yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
because I love like, just to go back to what you said about ask for 100% of your needs, it's like,
Mhm.
by default, that will cause conflict because 100% of your needs will never be met,
Mhm.
but the fact that you're able to recognize them and ask creates this opportunity for connection, and you get maybe 99% in a really good world, like an amazing relationship, but if you're not asking for 100, then or if there's no conflict, then maybe, yeah, it's you're probably not asking for 100% of your needs, so how many needs are going unmet, you know? Um
Yeah, and if they're kind of unspoken needs and
Mhm.
you're quietly keeping those to yourself and then building resentment over time,
Yeah,
then that's not healthy either, right?
yeah. So,
And
yeah.
yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, because a lot of people will be like, "Oh, I feel so," like, "I did this and I yelled at my kid or we had this fight," and it's like but it's really the repair that matters, so this it kinda lets you off the hook to have to be this "perfect parent," quote, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. We're never gonna be a perfect parent. I can see that for
Or
sure.
partner. Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
personal experience, yeah, we're never gonna be perfect. And we're never gonna be perfect partners to our partner, our spouse or our boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. So yeah, we're definitely not trying to strive for perfection at all because we are all fallen people. But being able to do our very best in this life that we have together, and be able to reconnect after there's been a mishap, right? Like that's what the masters do, is they they use the horsemen too, right? It's not that they never use the horsemen. The horsemen come galloping around with masters as well, but the difference is that it doesn't happen as frequently. And when it does happen, they notice it pretty quickly, and then they do a repair like fairly fast. They repair that rupture pretty quickly too. So that's something that we can definitely take away and apply in our own relationships. And kind of going back to what you had said about, our partner won't be able to meet all our needs, and that's normal, that's natural, of course. But that brings us to the second A, which is accept, right? Accept that our partner is also fallible, and maybe they would try and they intend to do their very best, and trusting that because of the commitment and care that you might have in the relationship, but knowing that they're not going to be perfect all the time, right? And so being able to accept what are they able to do. So in this whole conversation with the digital distraction with the phone idea, they when they switch, so just to backtrack, when after the apology, then the listener can check in with a speaker to ask if they felt heard and understood. And then if it's a yes, then they can switch roles here, right? After the apology, they can switch roles. And then the new speaker, who was the listener before, can kind of share their perspective on this situation, right? Because there's always going to be another perspective. And so then they can share their perspective. So maybe the one who they're on the phone, right? They might say, "You know what? I totally get what you're saying, and I want to be more present in the dinners, but sometimes I do have like a work demand or a deadline to meet, and I have to meet that deadline. Like I have to get it done." And so they say, "Okay, I might be able to have a no phone rule for, let's say, half an hour, right? Like half an hour of the dinner. Like, okay, yes, I can like be off my phone for half an hour. That's realistic. That's doable. I can do that. Maybe there will be some times where the latter part of the dinner, I will have to excuse myself, or I will have to kind of send some messages over the phone. So they might say, I can't do 100%, but I can meet you here. Maybe it's like 70% or 80%. That's how much I'm able to do. So then going to the accept, the one who made the complaint, they might take that in and say, okay, you know what? They're doing their best. I get where they're coming from too. And I can extend that grace and know that they will, and trust that they will do their very best to stay off the phone, and like that half an hour is protected. But if they need to be on it after that, then I'm okay with that, right? I'm accepting that. I'm embracing that my partner just has a really busy job, and this is kind of the reality of what I am facing. And that kind of ties in with Gottman's concept of perpetual issues, right? So there are there are those issues that are not going to go away, but you might be able to find um, some temporary compromise with it. So with this one, maybe it's like that half an hour that, like, okay, we can do that, but outside of that, it might be hard. So those perpetual issues are those kind of ongoing. The same thing keeps coming up in some kind of way over and over again. Those are usually related to personality differences or lifestyle differences or ideologies, value differences, maybe religious differences, political differences. So all these things that are harder to change about a person because it's just part of like your identity. And being able to kind of navigate that as a couple. So Gottman found 69% are going to be perpetual issues.
Wow,
69
that mhm.
all problems that we face are going to be.
But yeah, if you think of like just kind of the stereotypical in my head couple who's been together for, I don't know, 50 years or something, and, there's sort of this old married couple. They almost relate to those with humor, right? It's like, "Ah, that's just Herb. He's just, he just goes in his garage and he disappears for a few days." So there's, like, this acceptance there of, like, "This is just how he is, and I'm like this, and we always have this thing, and that's
Mhm.
just the way it is." So, yeah,
Exactly.
that's actually refreshing. It's like it helps to kinda navigate too when people are like, "How much am I supposed to accept, and how much should I try to
Yeah.
fix?" You know?
Yeah. If there's abuse happening, then that's a
Mhm,
bottom line, right? That's a safety issue, then that's a no-no, and there has to be very, very, very clear boundaries around that.
mhm,
If there's any kind of safety issue, abuse, like certain things like maybe gambling, that might be interfering in the relationship, and it comes back to what we said earlier about financial well-being,
mm,
right? That impacts on the financial household of the family. So addictions like might be a difficult one to work through.
mhm,
Uh, I know for the Gottmans, they have a very specific way of working with addictions. So, because a lot of other couples therapy, they just say, okay, that's that is those who are working through addictions, they wouldn't qualify to do couples work. Like, the recommendations usually go and do, um, some individual work or get, substance use, treatment somewhere else and then come back and do couples work. So that's typically the recommendation out there in the couples therapy kind of world. But the Gottmans come from a different perspective, which I respect, and it's hard, but I agree with it's hard when it's in front of you, but I do agree with it. Is you as a couple are going through it together.
mhm, mm,
And the partner might be, let's say, the sober one. The sober partner is there to support
mm,
one
mhm,
who's going through the addiction.
mm,
So that's a whole other, I mean, that's probably a podcast in and of itself,
yeah,
uh, but just to know that committed relationship actually helps and supports the person who's going through addiction to be able to overcome it,
mm,
right? So you're leveraging the relationship to be able to build the strength of the person who's trying to overcome the addiction. So, yeah, it's
yeah,
complex.
the nuance, because it's, like, without putting the responsibility on the sober partner or this, like, also examining codependent dynamics, but yeah, that it's, like, again, it's kind of this, we're not in a isolation, so addiction affects the partnership, and the
Yeah,
partnership could also, it creates a healthy context around the person dealing with addiction.
yeah,
So, yeah, um,
yeah. So co
dynamics play out and all kinds of, yeah.
exactly, yeah, there's dynamics all over the place, like, with extended family as well, and
Mm,
so, yeah, so how that kinda ties with the accept, like, yes, there's certain things that there needs to be clear boundaries on for sure, but really thinking about what can you accept, right? What's reasonable? What can there be some negotiation room there with, and being able to accept it. So with this example, it was, "I'm aware that part of me feels lonely when you're on the phone during dinner. I accept that there are times when you need to get back to someone urgently, and I'm choosing to support you during those times."
mm.
So this kind of reminds me of, let's see if I can quickly find it.
I love it, yeah, I love bringing in the resources is great.
I know, it's yeah, yeah. So I love this book too, Radical Acceptance, Andrea Miller. So that kind of ties into this whole concept of, I need to accept, not only our partner, but like other people around me, because we can't change anyone else. We can only change our approach to it, and our view of it. So being able to come to terms with those things that you can, like I said, there's certain boundaries that do need to be clear. And then the last piece. So I, I statements, L for listen, E for empathy. The first A is apology. The second A is accept. And then the D is for decide. So here they can decide together what now? Okay, we've had this conversation, super helpful. You shared your perspective. I shared my perspective. We both felt heard. We both felt listened to. There was an apology. Amazing. There's acceptance around whatever can be changed. Awesome. So now what, right? Now what's the next kind of step? Maybe sometimes that's enough. Like just having walked through that, that's amazing. They feel already like better, right? So just having that conversation might have been enough. So then jointly they can decide like, yeah, I feel great. This is wonderful. Thanks for like sharing with me. And then you just decide to, extend a gratitude for each other. Like, thanks for being so amazing and in my life. And I love that we're able to talk about these things. So extending gratitude might be what you decide on. Sometimes it might be having a more explicit action plan. Like if one person has said, okay, you know what, I promised to do this. And then the other person says, okay, I promise to do this. So with the phone example, like, okay, I promise, the first 30 minutes of dinner, my phone will be locked away. I'm not going to even touch it. It's not going to be on the table. Having the phone on the table is also a distraction, by the way. So having the phone off the table and, in another room, locked away in your like pocket, like jacket pocket in the closet, not your pocket that you can easily access. But yeah, so one person is saying 30 minutes, yes, I can commit to that. I'm agreeing to do that. And then the other person saying, okay, outside of that, then, I'll be understanding if you do need to use it for the latter part of dinner. So you have that action plan. Maybe just having it verbally is enough. Maybe it's helpful to even write it down so then you can revisit it later on. Try it out for a week or two and then come back and be like, okay, what did we decide on? Oh, right, it was this. How did that go? Okay, that's going really great. Amazing. Let's keep doing it. Or, you know what? We need to tweak this. So let's try to reconfigure a little bit more. Um, and so being able to do that. Just about the phone thing too. This past weekend, there was a couple there who shared something that I really loved. And that was that they don't allow any phones or TV in the room at all, in their bedroom. So I thought that was such a great rule. Because oftentimes, I hear the couples that I work with, like that causes conflict. Like one person's kind of scrolling in bed and they're just kind of not paying attention to their partner. And then it's the distraction in the bed.
Mm.
And so
Disrupting to one another's sleep, you know?
yeah, absolutely. Disrupting sleep and together time, right?
Mm.
And so, yeah, I thought that was a really great decision that they had made, like a very intentional decision that they had made going into their relationship of no screens in the bedroom. So I think that's great. So yeah, action plan might be helpful, coming up with some kind of compromise, and having like you said, that sense of humor and acceptance around those perpetual things that might not necessarily go away. So having some softening there, um, choosing that connection over distance, and being able to have that mind shift of you're more important than this issue. Okay. Um, and then I also created some Spotify playlists for couples to use, excuse me, as they kind of navigate different cycles. So if they're caught in a negative cycle, so that's an EFT term. If they're caught in a negative cycle, then I made a list for that, like a Spotify playlist that they can look at. Maybe they already have a song in mind, but if not, then the list can kind of give them some inspiration. And being able to kind of tie in your experience to music, I find is really healing, and being able to put words or emotion. Sometimes it's easier to like feel it viscerally listening to a song that you can identify with as opposed to talking about it per se. So it gives a different energy. And then I created a positive cycle playlist. So those that offer couples some hope, and some like commitment of knowing, yeah, we can work through really difficult things, but we'll get through it together. Like I'm committed to this relationship, and so yeah, so sometimes that's helpful.
Cool, actually, that's yeah, I saw that point, and I'm like, "That's really" what's, do you remember, like, an example of a song on the positive or the negative cycle playlist?
I can pull it up. Here, let me pull it up. I can like even show you. Here, let me stop sharing screen.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
It's the second time, my podcast I recorded yesterday, we also discussed music and, like, it
Oh yeah?
is so yeah, it's so powerful for so many things, like, it puts, uh, feelings to things that we may struggle to express. Oh, cool.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, when I was going through some difficulties in my marriage, I'm divorced now, but when we are going through some challenges, even like 5 years before we actually divorced, so we were going through some challenges. And I remember there was a day that I was driving to work and a song came on the radio,
Mm.
and oh my Talia, that hit
Mm.
home. I just started bawling my eyes out, and I went into work, and I was like, "I can't be here." Yeah, so I went home. Like, one of my colleagues was like, "Yeah, you gotta go home." I don't know what's
That's a
going
good
on.
boundary, that's a good it's like,
You
it's
gotta
time for
go home.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it has the right, it, like, unleashes something. Oh, yeah, these are really cool songs. "Say You Love Me,"
Yeah.
"Scientist" by Coldplay,
Yes.
"Poison Wine Hurt," Christina yeah, cool. Yeah. Yeah, it, like, gives I mean, there's a reason that so many songs are about relationships and love, right? It's, like, something that really even as you're discussing the ILEAD steps,
Yeah.
it's so hard to, like, stay emotionally regulated, and that's the importance, I think, and probably so much what you do in couples therapy is just creating a context for
Yeah.
them, a safe space for the couple to, like, engage in those conversations and practice that communication and listening,
Yes.
because you can feel like your partner is bringing something up, something that they're not happy with, and even if they're using I feel language and it's a soft start, it can still trigger this toxic shame, defensiveness, like this threat of like my attachment is being threatened?
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And so that's a good point. If at any point in time, let's say your listeners are trying out this iLead, right? And then they come to a point where, oh, you know what, things are getting heated, like this isn't what I expected. Then that's fine. Take a pause, right? Take a minute to be able to calm and soothe and gain some composure and be able to just do that self-soothing. Gottman recommends anywhere between 20 minutes and 24 hours to be able to have that little break.
Mm,
But then to be able to come back,
mhm,
right? Come back after that break. And during that break, not ruminating of like all your counter arguments and how terrible your partner is, right? Like, no, during that break, you are actually doing self-soothing activities that you know are tried, tested, and true for yourself. So you would have already known, okay, for me, journaling really helps, or like yoga really helps, or walking in nature for even 10 minutes helps. So knowing yourself of what helps to calm in those situations. Maybe it's even just like watching funny cat videos for 5 minutes, like just being able to get your mind off of it. Because in Gottman's research, it was very clear, right? Like there was they did some studies on flooding itself, what they call flooding. So if your heart rate is over 100 beats per minute, and they had monitors on the couples that they would bring in and study, and so if the heart rate was going sky high, then they would come in and say, "Okay, you know what? We're having an issue with our equipment. How about you guys go into this other room and just like don't say anything to each other, but here, just read these magazines and just we'll let you know when the equipment is working again." Right? So they kind of did trick them a little bit. And then they still had the heart monitors on. So then when the heart monitors came down to like 85 or so, Then they brought them back in. Oh, the equipment's working better now. Okay, let's come back in and resume that conversation. Just, take two here, like resume where you left off, exactly where you left off. Let's continue. So then they'd resume the conversation. And guess what? They were like two different people.
Mm.
Were able to be open, receptive. The logical brain was back online. The language brain was back online. And so they weren't in that fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode anymore. So they were able to really have a meaningful conversation. So that's so important. Yeah, just being able to take that little pause.
Yeah, that's so much of like, I mean, we were talking before we started recording that in my internship or my practicum, I saw a few couples, but couples that were engaged in conflict, it was hard. It's, they're like you were speaking about the passion for couples therapy and how it's very particular type of therapy because so much of it is, yeah, you're like laying ground rules, you're creating a safe context, and you're really making sure, yeah, you're almost because the heart rate monitor is amazing, and we're rarely wearing heart rate monitors, so we have to be responsible in some way for like noticing when we're becoming dysregulated. But so many of us don't know that, or we don't have that relationship with ourselves. So you're kind of watching, you're like, okay, 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 like let me pause you. You're having to. I'm not good at that. I would leave sessions being like frazzled, and I'm like, oh my god.
No. I know it is. Yeah, I mean, from a therapist perspective, that's another piece, right? And I have a video on this on I think I put on Instagram around like what do you do as a therapist when that's in front of you? And the first step was check in on yourself.
Mhm.
Like take a breath for yourself and regulate yourself because there might be countertransference going on for yourself as a therapist. Like maybe it's reminiscent of when your parents would argue with each other and you felt like you had to kind of mediate. A lot of therapists, we have our own backstories. Um, so like that's what kind of
Siding with one person over another, you find yourself doing that.
yeah, that triangulation.
Mm,
So
mhm,
we are drawn into this field for various reasons. And so we have to kind of check in on ourselves. So take that breath yourself as a therapist before you kind of do anything, before you say anything, before you intervene, but just have that little mini check-in and take that deep breath and then say, okay, let me pause you here. Let me pause you. Let's take the heart rate, right? And even just like in the middle of a session, if you take the heart rate, I find even just that exercise of pausing, taking the heart rate, and then they're counting and they're waiting and I'm calculating and so there's a little bit of a break there, right? And then even just that, like however long, maybe 2 minutes that it took to measure the heart rate might have even been enough for them to just take a breath, right? And then yeah, this I grabbed these because these are pulse oximeters. So when I do meet in person, then I put these on my couples. So each of them has one. So it's just a little thing that they put on their like on their finger. And then I have it set up so that if it goes over 100 beats per minute, then it beeps.
mm.
So these are great. But yeah, you're right. Like people aren't going to be walking around with these all day long. But
That's really cool actually, because
yeah,
I think there's one, individual client I'm thinking of who would bring in this pattern with her partner, where they would go from, like, 0 to 100 in, like, 2 steps, so even in, like, trying to break down and identify the pattern, it was like, "This would happen, then I would say this, then he would say this, then, damn, we're dysregulated,"
yeah,
and, a lot of that was, like, active dysregulation, like yelling, screaming, but, crying, like, but, so many people are just their dysregulation shows in, like, the overwhelm and the distancing and avoidance and shutdown, but sometimes often before that happens, there's an increase in heart rate, and then it's like, kind of a shutdown, response where they're just not, "So what
just
do you
trying
think
to
about that?"
survive.
"I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't care. Okay, I'm done." That kind of, um so yeah, it's
Yeah,
really cool.
exactly.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And like when the person shuts down, like that's part of the definition of stonewalling is
Mm.
internally, like physiologically, they are completely flooded. So on the surface, they might look like they don't care or they're just disengaged and they like, oh, they don't care. The person who sees it, they might think they don't care about me, they don't care about the relationship. They don't even want to have this conversation. But internally, they're just completely overwhelmed and they actually care so much that they are completely dysregulated and flooded. And so they're just trying to kind of survive that experience and just kind of get through. But yeah, that's why they're shutting down because they care they care so
Yeah.
much.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah.
That's often, yeah, I always say, like, when we feel numb, like, right, when there's a lot happening and we say, "I just feel numb, I don't feel anything," there's too much emotion, there's an overwhelm of emotion, so the
Mhm.
experience is, "I don't feel anything," but in fact, there's a lot going on. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Mhm,
bringing couples in to see that, okay, yes, there's hope. We
mhm.
might be going through stuff, but there's hope, and you can see some of the positive cycle
Mm,
songs on here too. Just that sense of like, I'm with you. We'll get through the storm. So through the storm, Yolanda Adams. I'm by your side, Sade. Like, just togetherness
yeah, good.
to walk through together. I choose you, Sarah Bareilles.
Chasing Cars.
Mhm.
Oh, cool. Yellow, another Coldplay song.
I love plays.
It's good, yeah.
I saw
Cool.
the Candlelit concert, um,
Oh, yeah? Oh, cool.
the concert, yeah,
So
so
it's
cool.
instrumental only?
Yes,
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Mhm. Yeah,
mhm,
I'm getting ads for those. Yeah, that's
yes.
cool. That's a nice, like, calming, sensory regulating thing to do too. It's like dim lighting and just instrumental music
Yeah, oh,
that
it's good,
and enjoy and yeah,
so
but
good.
yeah. Thank you. That
Yeah,
was really helpful. The ILEAD, useful tips and then this idea about, regulation and self-regulation and co-regulation to be able to have those conversations too. And then the awareness of the 4 horsemen that, okay, when you start to feel these coming online, it's normal actually, it will happen, so don't feel discouraged, but it's about kind of, okay, pausing and like, it's okay, I don't, let me
mhm.
undo that, let me kinda, rewind.
Do the repairs,
Didn't
yeah,
mean that or, okay, oh, I'm stonewalling, okay, let's take a break, let's, you
yeah,
know, pause
yeah.
and watch cat videos, and then we'll come back. Yeah,
That's
um,
all my, like, Twitter is. This is just, like, interesting animal videos and funny animal videos,
mhm.
pets. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually had a client tell me that recently. She's like, "The only thing" she's like, "I curate my Instagram, it's just dogs. I don't wanna see anything else
I
ever."
know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Mhm,
stuff out there that
mhm,
the media stuff that is it
mhm,
can just, um yeah, when
mhm,
you're not really necessarily looking for it, that can be like mini traumas that you're watching or experiencing and,
mhm,
uh, yeah, just in, like, building in some control over what you're exposed to and
hmm.
being able to monitor that. It helps.
Do you have any so one of the steps is empathy,
Mm,
um, and I'm wondering if there are tips for that. Like, if
mm,
somebody struggles with empathy or if they feel like their partner and maybe it's because the partner struggles with their own shame, and so their defensiveness kicks in, but
mhm. Mhm, mhm.
yeah, like, is there
Yeah. There's
technique
actually
yeah.
the same Gottman app that I mentioned, Gottman card deck app. If you go on there, there is a empathy card deck, expressing empathy, yeah.
Oh,
S
cool.
On there. Sorry, my dog, snagged me, I'm sorry, I have a Band-Aid.
Oh.
Um, so yeah, expressing empathy, so just give some
Mm,
ideas.
mm,
Uh, you can look through and see what might resonate. Because
mhm,
sometimes, like, we're not we're not trained necessarily generally to do these things, right? We as therapists are, but I mean, the general public are
Mhm.
not trained to like what's validation, like that comes up a lot with my couples is like that's a part that's missing in their conversations, and then yeah, of course they're gonna feel unheard.
Mhm.
Of course, they're not gonna feel like their partner gets them because they 'cause they're not feeling validated. Uh,
Mhm.
so, yeah, so things like, "You must feel so hopeless," so, like, kinda mirroring the emotion back. "I feel such despair in you when you talk about this," so being able to tap into what emotion is bringing up for you, listening to it. "You're in a tough spot here," so, yeah, empathizing with what they're experiencing. I can feel the pain you feel. The world needs to stop when you're in this much pain. So that's all turning to words, right? And the world needs to stop when you're in pain. I'm in the middle of doing dishes, but I see you upset. My world in this moment can stop and I can turn towards you when you're feeling upset. So just that sense of
Mhm.
connectedness,
Mhm.
togetherness. Yeah. It's
Mm.
so
Mhm.
powerful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's really nice, and it's like you can create space for that, and then because often it's like a yes, but, right? Like you said,
Yeah.
the agreeing
Mhm.
part, or, you're like, it can be possible to empathize even if you don't agree, right? It's like
Yeah.
just making space for the other person's experience and emotions, and then, and
Mhm.
allowing that to be communicated.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, whether you think the person's right or you think you would respond that way, or, the whole thing where we can get into our heads and or allowing the other to have their space and their empathy and their time, and then you'll get your time as well
Mhm.
in this conversation, you know?
Exactly, yeah, exactly. It's a good point because the way that the ILEAD is built,
Mhm.
each person does have a turn, right? And so sometimes when there's just natural conversation happening, you might interrupt because you're trying to make your point,
Mhm.
and you're just kind of thinking about what your point is going to be as a person's talking. But just the idea that you're going to get a turn,
Mhm.
like once done, you know that your turn's going to come, then just patiently waiting. And in the meantime, focusing on what they're actually saying,
Mhm.
right? Sometimes even writing things down of what they're saying might help
Mhm.
just to kind of slow down the process and be able to be present and remember some of the points, right? Because when you're summarizing back, you want to be able to do that accurately. So even just jotting down like little keywords as the person is talking might help.
Mhm.
Um, or like if you think of questions that you don't want to forget that question, just write it down.
Mhm.
Right? And then the keywords around their feeling words. So jotting those down because you're going to use those when you're doing the empathy validation piece. So yeah, just having that opportunity to take notes is really helpful too.
Almost like as you're talking and describing this, I'm like, should be taught in school, because
Yes.
you're talking about kind of like natural conversation or what people are used to, the conversation patterns, if we even sit down and talk at all without distractions, right? Um, so there's this structured approach with the steps, but it's like, learning how to snowboard. When you're teaching somebody, you're breaking it down into these like micro steps. And then when you get good at it, then you don't think about that and you just kind of make art with your snowboarding or whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
So, but it can take a lot of time and a lot of practice to, okay, we have to sit down, we have to do these steps together. And okay, that works better than whatever we were doing before or
Yeah.
weren't doing,
Exactly.
and then eventually that'll just become part of how we talk to one another.
Yeah.
But, after much repetition, um,
Yeah.
yeah, of practicing this skill. So, yeah, I'm just thinking about like going into a high school and teaching people how to have conversations with their friends or partners,
Absolutely.
Mhm,
Yeah, it's a soft skill that,
mhm,
more workplaces are looking for and that, some people don't necessarily have that
mhm,
skill. And so it is super important, not only in our personal relationships, but also our work, the kind of work that we do, and being able to even like lead a team at the workplace, being able to um, hear your employees' concerns and validate that,
Yeah.
right? They feel heard, they feel respected in the workplace. So yeah, it touches on all kinds of areas. And I love that you mentioned about school because that's like in my heart as well to be able to bring these kind of tools to kids in classrooms, and I did it a couple years ago. I did speak to a classroom, actually at my son's school,
Cool.
and so, we were able to kinda talk about feelings and, like, naming feelings and expressing feelings, and so we kind of did that more, but yeah, it starts early, like, that was maybe grade 4 class, I think it was.
Cool.
So yeah, I think it's wonderful to be able to start early and be able to foster that emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, like,
in
what
kids.
am I feeling? What word goes with that? How do I speak that to people? And because,
Yeah.
yeah, you were speaking about, soft starts and harsh starts.
Mhm.
And I can even, so partners on their phone, we'll use the example you used, they're on their phone at dinner. It's like, can you get off your phone? I'm trying to talk to you. And
Yeah.
already it's not going to go anywhere, and then couples are trying to rewind and figure out where the impasse is and why don't we connect and why don't we like each other. And it's like, oh, like we, don't have any starting point with which we can work with one another.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like rebuilding these skills, like rebuilding the relationship house kinda.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Going back to the
Mm.
sound relationship house.
Mhm. One
Um,
brick at a time. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And this, I mean, this house, it took 50 years of research to figure it out, right? Like
Mm,
it was a long road, and so to be able to implement these kinds of tools will also be a road. Like, I
mhm,
feel like the next generation, they're more emotionally in tune
mhm,
past generations. So I'm hopeful for the future in
mhm.
that respect.
Yeah, I see that too, actually. Like, Gen Z is very aware and very smart in a way that I don't know if
Yeah.
we were. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have hope for them. I know they
Yeah.
get a lot of flack, but I don't believe it. I like Gen Zs. They're all writing my books. Yeah.
I think every generation has pros and cons, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, like how, I see younger people kind of grapple with relationships and
Yeah.
the things that they've been exposed to, and even these gender dynamics is interesting. It's an interesting conversation. I think it's pretty polarized on social media in the way that so much is polarized in order to drive kind of the negative emotion that catch your attention. So there's a way, I think that that's conversation could be a lot more nuanced, but there's a lot of frustrations around um, partnership and gender dynamics and like roles in
Mm,
households and things like
mhm,
that.
mhm. Yeah.
That yeah, that Gen Z seems to have more of an awareness of or a transcendence of. But
Mhm.
yeah, but that's a general statement. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Hmm.
there's more awareness of
Hmm.
equity,
Hmm.
uh, and fairness. And yeah, thanks for raising that because I'm actually in the midst of writing a book
Oh
for
wow.
yeah.
It's good. You're up to a lot, Melissa. This is good. We
Oh,
catch
yeah.
up.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, there's
we have to
lots
do
of
another one
projects
sooner.
in the works, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the one I'm writing, I've been wanting to write a book on premarital work for many years, and so finally I'm like, okay, I got to do it. Just have to sit down and do it. So I started it a couple weeks ago, actually, and then so I have the whole outline done, and
Cool.
last night I started to like write the prologue, and then started to write the first chapter. So it's early stages, but it's yeah, for premarital couples primarily, but of course, like any couple can benefit from the information. But yeah, that's one of the top. That's why I thought of it, because that was one of the topics is roles,
Mhm.
right? Roles and expectations and invisible labor, and so
Mhm.
that's going to
Yeah,
be one of the
that's
factors. Yeah.
cool. Yeah,
Hmm.
I know there's, like, the card game Fair Play to kinda just visualize and lay it out and start having conversations around it, so
Yeah,
there's tools that are
which is
helpful, but
great.
yeah, it's a tough one. It's
Yeah.
one where and I don't necessarily see this in just heterosexual dynamics either. It seems to be that there's, this idea of fairness, and maybe it also reflects a difference in temperament too. Like, if I would rather there be no socks on the floor and my partner doesn't care, then I'm probably gonna be the one picking them up, right? So and then so
Yeah. Different levels, differing expectations of cleanliness. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
interesting. My student, she's a MSW student from U of T. She's with me for the summer, and so she's really interested in blog writing, and I said, "Yeah, please." My blog, sometimes I'm delinquent with my blog, and kind of a couple of years will pass and there's no entry. But yeah, she's interested in blog writing, and I said, "Yes, please go for it." And so she gave me some topic ideas that she was thinking of, and then invisible labor was one of them. And so I said, "Yeah, go for it." And then so she has a draft. We just have to finalize the draft. And then in that, I had mentioned to her about the fair play card game, and she hadn't heard of it before. She's like, "Oh, that's fantastic. That's so practical and fun." Like, it makes it kind of fun, right? To kind of think about, okay, what are all the tasks that I do versus what you do, and let's see how it stacks up. And so, yeah, she incorporated that in her blog as well. So, yeah, keep an eye out for that on the
yeah, oh, that's really cool. Yeah,
site.
because it's also, like, what goes into every task. Like, if my job in our relationship is to write the thank you cards
Yeah.
or birthday cards, well, that means I have to remember them, I have to know, I have to keep it on track. It's not as simple as, like, I have to go buy the cards, I have to think of every person's personality, what kinda card they were like, there's all this work
Mhm.
around the managing that project.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so yeah, cooking if my job is to cook the 3 meals every day and your
Mm.
job is to clean the gutters how often do you clean them? A month? That's not necessarily, like, tit for tat, right? And,
Yeah,
um,
equitable. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
interesting. There's a lot in partner because there's sort of this, like, team relationship of how do we manage a household or how do we manage a family?
Yeah.
How are we partners in that it's not that necessarily romantic sphere, but it's like, how do we practically make it work where we can
Mhm.
live and function together? And,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Yeah. Yeah.
mhm,
So I think those are good, like, it's good conversations,
mhm,
and that's the piece, right? You have to be able to sit down, have these conversations with each other, and work through it and come up with some agreed upon
mhm,
solution together if possible.
mhm,
And yeah, kind of going back to the 7 principles as well, like that, it walks through the friendship foundation, the conflict management piece. So, yeah, how are we gonna solve the solvable problems? How are we gonna manage the perpetual problems or gridlock issues? Sometimes if you're really butting heads on it, it becomes a gridlock issue.
mhm,
And then the third part, general bucket that is the it comprises the 7 principles is the shared meaning.
mhm,
So being able to get on the same, aligned with what the expectations are, what the roles are, what the rituals of connection or like rhythms of our time together, being able to connect together will be, and what it kind of symbolizes or represents our relationship. And so being able to kind of walk through those areas of and our goals, what are we setting out to accomplish with our relationship? So that's all covered at the retreats as well, like all 7 principles. So that's the 7th principle is the shared meaning. And one thing that came out of the retreat from this past weekend was um, like wanting a little bit more on the symbols part.
Mm.
And so it's actually connected to a workshop that I'll have in August. I'll be collaborating with someone who like she does more of the art therapy stuff. And so in August, like we're aiming at the end of August to do like a art therapy for couples, right? And so I have to talk to her still about it, but I kind of want to incorporate symbolism. So like, what does your relationship mean? Like for example, my student, she used to be a student last year, but now she's an associate with me. So she gave an example of in her relationship that they've been married over 30 years. Uh, Over time, their relationship has meant and continues to mean hospitality. So then it got me thinking like, okay, because when that person at the retreat said like, okay, this like symbols thing, like we're trying to get our mind wrapped around that. And so I was thinking about it more afterwards, last night actually. And so I was thinking about like, okay, like with that example that Susan had shared about hospitality, like how can we make that into a symbol and bring in like incorporate that in potentially the workshop in August, right? To like do some kind of art exercise for couples. And so then well, Chat GPT is great for this kind of stuff and like brainstorming, right? So then it came up with a whole bunch of different symbols for hospitality. And then one of those symbols I really liked, which was breaking bread. Okay,
Mm.
basic, like, straightforward kind of symbol. And so then I asked it to, draw a picture of that, like a couple breaking bread, like, with people around them kinda thing, and so it created this, like, image, animated kinda image, of breaking bread, and so, like, "Oh, that's so perfect," like, I think that's so wonderful, so then, you could take that and then, and then in, like, the art workshop, for example, then, like, draw you guys breaking bread or, like, just even drawing a loaf of bread and just that symbolizes the hospitality. So, yeah, so that piece,
Cool.
was
It's almost like, creating, like, a logo or a what do you call those things? Like, signa? Or like the coat of arms for your relationship.
yeah,
Like, what represents your partnership or your
exactly.
yeah. It's beautiful because a lot of the time we do have images in our head or yeah, or even to think about what image would come to mind if you think about your relationship or what are the images, um, and how do we make those concrete or bring them to life or like, yeah,
Yeah,
represent them to think of, yeah, what does our partnerships stand for? What symbolizes it? Or
yeah,
what are
yeah,
our shared values, purpose, direction,
yes.
past,
Yeah,
present, future, like the narrative, like it's a kind of
yeah.
like weaving narrative therapy in. Mhm.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Yeah, yeah, and yeah. So past, present, future, what do we and then that kind of ties in with the goals as well. What do we still wanna accomplish,
Mhm.
5 years, 10 years, 20 years in retirement, etcetera. So,
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's really
So,
cool.
yeah, so those are all the kind of topic areas that we cover in the retreat, and then the next one is, I booked at the same place, the Queen of Apostles,
Mhm.
and that'll be May 29th to 31st next
Okay,
year,
of
2020.
2026. Beautiful.
Yes.
And then there's something coming up in August. Do you
Yeah.
still have spots open for that, for people who are interested?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we honestly, we haven't opened it yet.
Okay.
We haven't opened the registration yet. So, yes, there'll be but if people are interested, just email me and then they can already be on the pre-registration list, so
Perfect. Yeah, maybe what people can do is I'll put a link for your website, and if they go and grab the iLead,
yeah.
freebie, then they'll be on your mailing list, and then they'll get updates about what's coming next. That'd be a good
Exactly, yeah.
yeah.
That's the easiest way to do it, yeah, just to kind of get on the mailing list, and then they'll be the first to know about when something's open for registration. So I have that one in August. That's the art one. And then this one, May 29th to 31st. And then September, this coming September, we have a money talk one. So an anti-budget couples edition. So I'm excited for that too. So I'm partnering with Angie Ross on that. So she's a money coach. And I'm just trying to find the date. I think it's September 25th. So let me just double check.
That's cool. Yeah, I
Sorry.
love that there's this like acknowledgement and then embracing of this financial piece, you know?
Yeah,
Mhm.
important. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, here it is. September 23rd. It's a Tuesday.
Mm, mhm.
Yeah, so that's at
Yeah,
7 p.m.
25th. It's my
Yeah.
niece's birthday. Audrey. Yeah.
Aw, fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, that's great. So it's like it sounds like it's practical advice for financial stuff. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of aligning on what are our goals, and then depending on what the goals are, tying, sometimes there's money attached to the goal, right? So then being able to backtrack. So if our goal, we're aligned on our shared value of travel. So we love to travel. So then our goal is next year to go on an Alaskan cruise to see the Aurora Borealis. Okay. I'm just like thinking out loud here. That is one of my bucket list items, but
Yeah, it's cool.
and yeah, and so if that's our goal, like let's say next year to do that Alaskan cruise, then how much is that going to cost? And then backtracking. So if it's going to cost like, I don't know, they're expensive. Let's say $10,000 for both of us. I don't know.
Mhm,
And so then backtracking. So we have like, okay, let's say, I don't know, a year and a half to save for it. Then how much do we need to save each month? And then creating its own separate account that is a savings account that doesn't have any kind of uh, bank charges,
mm,
right? So you
mhm,
can just contribute to the savings account, and it's just money sitting there that you're contributing to, and so every month saving for that Alaskan cruise. So
mhm.
then eventually you'll be able to go on that cruise and not go into debt as a result, but actually have the money saved for it. So, yeah. So, anyway, little tips like that, right? That
Yeah,
she'll, walk through.
that's good, yeah. It's like
So,
helping to kind of create a space to figure out, okay, how are we going to yeah, because again, money conversations are another of those sticky, like, unpleasant, sometimes
mhm,
conversations that we don't it's like, how do we even do this? But then, okay, like, if every month we're putting aside a little bit, we're gonna put it in this tax-free mutual fund or whatever, and then at the end of the year, we have it. So, um, yeah, that's good, and then we can go on our cruise, and then it's not a stress that we're always kinda grappling with.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm,
Christmas is another one, right? Like,
mhm,
if Christmas, you're going to spend like $2,000 in total
mhm,
on entertainment, food, travel, gifts, right? Decorations, whatever the whole Christmas budget is, whatever that all entails, if it adds up to like 2,000, $3,000, then kind of backtracking, okay, what do we need to save each month to be able to survive Christmas and not feel totally stressed out?
so interesting, and, like, I'll say this, there's a, manifestation, kind of business, called, To Be Magnetic. So there's, like, an influencer that works on this, and she always talks about how relationships and money are intertwined, and I think the symbolism in both of those things is, like, security and, um, freedom, responsibility, like, there's so much tied up in money, that, in our relationship to money. So it's an interesting it's good, it's bold to just bring it into the conversation and,
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the book that I'm writing,
Mm,
there's a section on money too, and then yeah, kind of delving into just that, right?
mm,
Where did our story of money start?
mm,
Where did
mhm.
that come from? Like, what was our parents' experience with money? What did we witness to that? And what does money mean to us? So yeah, it's quite charged, right? It goes quite deep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And especially in marriage, like, there's this, like, combining of finances very often,
Yeah.
um, and so it's like, "Oh, I inherit your money issues, you're gonna take on mine." Now we have to sort through that. If we've never looked at that before, here it is, it's, like, in front of us.
Yes,
So
figuring that out.
mhm.
Yeah.
Mm,
Oh, that's
uh,
so good to
yeah.
connect. Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks so much, Melissa. Any final thoughts or anything you wanna wrap up with? We'll put all your links in the show notes, your
Yeah, that's
Instagram, your
great.
website.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. Like I think that um, if couples are kind of wondering about how to like maybe they don't necessarily want to do couples counseling, but they're just curious about wanting to know more tools or have more tools or do something, some kind of couple activity together. Like the workshops, we have workshops pretty regularly on different topics, and then the retreat. Like I think that's a nice way to kind of if you don't necessarily want to do the in-depth couples therapy, then there's other options out there. And even for those couples who like they're in a good place, right? They're happy, they're content, they're in a good place. It's for them too, right? To be able to maintain that good place because that takes effort and work too, just to maintain. So yeah, I remember I had made that point at the retreat as well of like, if you're going to go to the gym and work out and you have a certain goal for your body to, build a certain amount of muscle tone or like have a certain percent of body fat, whatever. And then you work really hard and then you attain your goal, you achieved your goal, then if you want to maintain that, even just maintaining that takes work.
Mm,
So
mhm.
the relationship is the same way, just to maintain it also takes that work. So maybe it's not necessarily delving into full on couples therapy, but maybe it's doing a workshop or doing a retreat or something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So it's good because the Gottmans, one thing I appreciate about them is the way they present their information seems it's very digestible. I wouldn't say simple, but it has that like, it's
Yeah.
not very complicated or very, you know, cognitive, but there's so much research, and so for a couple who everything is working and they're great, and it's, like, nice to just know, "Oh, this is what you've been doing," maybe, because you have these 7 principles down pat it's kind of like you hit your like muscle building goal, like to use your analogy, but you don't know what you did right. And it's like, well, you went to the gym, you tracked your macros, and it's like, oh, right, right, right. Okay, okay. So just keep doing that, right? Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I don't know what's working. Maybe we just really get along. But to know, oh, okay, like you're actually following these principles, turns out. Um, and you've accepted the 69% of things that don't align.
Yeah.
So good for you, 'cause, who can naturally just do that by accident, you know?
No, that takes effort in and of itself. Yeah. And just like a lot of emotional maturity. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
And my team is obviously there for those couples who do wanna do that deep dive and do that, more traditional couples work.
mm,
So, they see couples for all kinds of different reasons, whether it's, depression, anxiety, infidelity, um, communication issues, conflict management. "Oh, okay, we're always having the same argument. Like, how are we gonna navigate that?" Feeling disconnected, like that's one we see quite a lot is just, we've had kids, like we're busy with the kids and we don't even know who each other are anymore. And so that comes up quite a bit as well, just that sense of disconnection. So then being able to bring them back
mm.
together and reform that bond again. So, yeah.
That's great. Cool. Yeah, so anyone listening, check out the show notes to get in touch with Melissa, go on a retreat, or yeah, access some of the resources, and yeah, this is really good. Thank you so much. That was really helpful, and I liked the lesson. I think that's gonna be really beneficial for people.
The ILEAD? Oh, good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's great. Yeah.
I'm glad. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it was a an exercise that I had put together and it was like maybe for a good week or so, maybe 10 days. it just like, it was one of those things that just, like, consumed me. Like, "Oh, I could add this," and, "Oh, I can add this," and so it started off without a second A and without the heart of, like, defining the 2 different areas, and so it's, like, over those maybe 10 days or so, I was, like, tweaking it, evolving it, using it with my clients, and then they would give me feedback on even just the handout, 'cause, when I had, what I showed you of just the content. And then I remember a couple I am working with that said like, "This is amazing. It's so helpful, but can you put it in just one summary cheat sheet page?" And so then I added that. You'll see if you download the handout, there is that at the end. Like I didn't show it here, but it was after the content part of the instructions. Then there's another page that was just like a cheat sheet. Um, and then that took because I wanted it to be pretty and like, and be able to, bring in my logo and like bring in little emojis, but then the emojis I wanted them to be my logo colors. And anyway, it was like a whole thing just to like put that cheat sheet together. But yeah, I hope people appreciate it and find it useful. So that was the whole idea, just to be able to provide some framework that couples can use. Like if there's something just heavy on your heart, heavy on your mind, like how can we navigate this so that we set that conversation up for success?
Yeah, and then you can just print out the cheat sheet or write
Yes.
down the points and then have it with you and put it on the table. "Okay, wait, we missed a step. Let's go back. Okay, empathize,
Exactly.
please." Yeah.
Yeah, like, they could even if they're on the go, like, they can just take a picture of the cheat sheet, right? And then it's in their
Mhm.
photos, and then they can just pull it up, like, if they're on vacation or, they're, like, at a family member's house or something, and then something comes up and they need to kind of have a conversation, then they can pull up the cheat sheet from wherever they are and just take
Yeah.
a pic.
'Cause even just the, I statement, it can feel clunky and kind of foreign in your mouth if you're not used to speaking that way. So it's like, "Wait, okay, hey, I stop using your okay, no, sorry, wait. I feel lonely when you're" right?
Yes,
But it
yes.
yeah. But it
It
changes the whole game, so
it
it's
does, it
already
changes the whole game. If it's an I statement that says, "I feel that you always
Mhm,
leave the dishes out," I don't know, whatever, then it's just a criticism
mhm.
under the disguise of an I statement, right? Like, that's not an I statement. I feel that whenever the next word is that no, 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 start again. It needs to be a feeling word.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a yeah, otherwise you're just kind of hiding a judgment or a criticism, right? Yeah. "I
Yeah.
feel that you are
Yes,
are an
exactly.
idiot." It's like
Exactly.
yeah, it's
That's
like, okay.
criticism.
Yeah,
Yeah.
"I feel frustrated when you do this thing," and
Yeah.
yeah, that I think is idiotic, but maybe you keep that part to yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, keeping the harsh statements out of
Mhm.
picture, but
Mhm.
stating, what you feel about what's going on, that's fair,
Mhm.
um, and what you need. Yeah. Good.
Okay. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Melissa. This is
Hell
great.
yeah. Yeah, it was fun.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks.